Welcome to the Magnolia Shine podcast. Wilton Jackson, Blake Levine, the Jackson State Report, and really, HBCU sports in general. So tell me, did you think that Jack State had a good signing day last Wednesday? Because I think that's the first thing we got to talk about today.
I mean, Blake, arguably, if you look at some of the players that they brought in, I think this is very much a team that can still obviously compete to win a SWAC title next year. You look at some of the players that they brought in some more running backs, some more offensive linemen, really a good plethora of people at all positions. But, me and you both know that the game is always won in between the trenches. So, and TC, we've heard him say this multiple times, always having to rebuild and reload on the offensive defensive lines. And so they did that. They brought in two offensive line. I'm looking at the list now. Ryan Anderson, Kale Armstrong, and then a running back that I saw some tweets on Twitter. Saw a couple of his highlights and clips circulating on Twitter, but the running back from San Diego, Keenan Christian, I saw a tweet that they were comparing him to Irv Mulligan, and he could be the next Irv Mulligan. Now, it's only one Irv Mulligan, but if that's the case, that's a good sign for, obviously a quarterback like Jacoby Morgan, and obviously more broadly a Jackson State program looking to repeat. So I think, with some of those players and obviously a long list of others, this is still going to be a team that's dangerous in the SWAC East and more broadly the SWAC overall.
Jackson State's recruiting was so different this season than it was last season. Last season felt it was very junior college or other college oriented and less high school, where they were trying to rebuild still. This year it felt like they got a bunch of high school kids, which was really nice. And I think one of the other cool things for me with Jack State's recruiting is you're returning a lot of the guys that just won the Celebration Bowl. They didn't have to replace that much. Usually when you have a team that wins like that, you got to replace a lot. They really don't. And with the new ruling that junior college years don't even count towards your eligibility, they may even get some guys back that we thought were gone. So it was really interesting, and it was nice to see them get some local kids too. You talk about that Kale Armstrong, in State, and then Jeremiah Wilson from Lanier. I think it's great when Jackson State has their own. I think when you win with a quarterback like Jacoby Morgan and he's from Canton, and Canton is just full of Jackson State fans. I mean, that city just loves Jackson State more than maybe the city of Jackson itself. Don't hate me for saying that. So I think it's great when they're able to do that. I mean, as someone that's a resident here that's grown up here, talk about it. I mean, that's got to mean something when you get local people.
Well, it does. And I mean, Coach Taylor has talked about that, since he became the head coach at Jackson State. He's always wanted to recruit locally. He always wanted to keep people in Mississippi, in the state of Mississippi, playing for Jackson State University. And so that's what he's doing. He's further solidifying that message that I'm going to go out. Obviously, I will recruit outside of the state of Mississippi, but more so than anything, he's going to recruit his own players in the state. And you're seeing that with the list of players and basically how you just explained, getting a running back like Jeremiah Wilson from Lanier. I mean, that's obviously an outstanding running back, had an incredible year for the Bulldogs over there at 833 Maple Street, as they like to call it. But I think that, players like him, if other players behind him are constantly seeing that, they're going to Jackson State, that gives other players the opportunities and the chance to think, well, maybe I should continue my career at Jackson State. And they're winning championships. Like, no matter what level you play on, it's hard to win a championship. But if you can win a championship, have consecutive winning seasons, and then also do it in the capacity in the way that Jackson State and Coach Taylor had to do it last year, I mean, it just speaks volumes. And if you're a player, you always want to be able to play for a winning team. And so why not stay home if you can, if you have a good opportunity to make a name for yourself and win a championship? If those are your goals, and obviously to get a college degree, why not?
Yeah, and junior college aside, I was arguing with someone the other day, and I said, isn't it interesting that Jack State's the most successful football program right now in the state of Mississippi? And they were like, what do you mean? No, Ole Miss is doing way better. I said, no. The argument is not who would win the game between Ole Miss and Jackson State, because I think you and I both agree that would probably be a wide score between
sure.
that. Right. And then, it is what it is. However, Jackson State, if you take the last half decade compared to any other football program, D3, D2, NAIA, I don't even know if we have one here in the state of Mississippi, and Division I, FCS, FBS, they've been the most successful for the last half decade.
Well, I'll have to go back and look at it in depth. And as far as like NAIA,
How about this? Does Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Southern Miss, do they have a Heisman Trophy winner come through their school?
No, they don't.
Okay, do any of them have 3 conference championships?
Ole Miss, Mississippi State does not. Southern Miss certainly does
No, no.
not.
By
No.
the way, we could combine all of them, and I got it. The SEC is hard, but you know what? You play in the conference you play in. It
Yeah.
is what it is. That's
Right.
why I was trying to say that it was all relative. So you talk about 3 championships. You talk about a Heisman Trophy winner who just claimed Jackson State, which I thought was really nice of him. And then
Right.
you have the possible first quarterback taken that also came through. And it's like, well, they didn't finish their careers here. Well, if Deion Sanders would have stayed, they would have.
Yeah, no, that's true. The only reason I was questioning something that you said was more so the fact that you were saying in the last decade. Because remember, prior to Deion Sanders, we do
Half
know it.
decade.
Yeah,
Half
okay.
decade.
Half decade, you're absolutely right. The entire decade, not so much.
No.
Because Jackson State was, they were having their down years, but no, within the last half decade, for sure, easily one of the top tier programs in the state, hands down.
Yeah, yeah, but I guess I could make the argument if we take the decade. I know Jackson State was not very good, but at the same time, I mean, Ole Miss had AJ Brown, DK Metcalf, Matt Corral, Dawson Knox, and they were going 7-5. So
True.
I don't know. Is it that far off? I mean, your other school, Southern Miss. I mean, it is what it is.
We won't even talk about Southern Miss right now. Again, as a Southern Miss alum, and you just hate to see it because I could just remember, Blake, and I know this is a sidebar. My freshman year, 2011, that team was so good. Oh my God. Austin Davis, my gosh. We thought that Southern Miss was going to run through Conference USA for the rest of our entire careers at USM. And then 2012 hit. And then 2013 hit. And then 2014 hit. I'm like, this is crazy.
Yeah, well, Ellis Johnson's name will live forever. So,
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
all right, back to Jackson State. Let's talk a little basketball for a moment.
All
Let's
right.
actually start with the women here for a moment because I want to bring something up to you. Texas Southern's in first place, 11-0. They're no doubt they're the best team right now. You can't
Right.
take anything away from them.
Absolutely.
And then you have Southern and Jackson State tied at 9-2. Both teams really good, but here's the biggest problem I have right now for the women Tigers. You've played Texas Southern, you got blown out. You played Southern, you got blown out. So you're 9-0 against the teams, quote unquote, you're supposed to beat, maybe the lesser teams.
Right.
But yet, when you play the 2 really good teams, that maybe the 2 best teams, arguably, they've handled you pretty good.
No, they have. You're absolutely right, Blake. But here's the thing: while they have lost to those 2 teams in the regular season, that's why you always have the great equalizer in the tournament. That's not to say that Jackson State is going to win in the tournament, but I do think that the same team that Jackson State put on the floor, Coach Richards put on the floor against them during that time, this is still a Jackson State team, even in going into the second week of February, they're still figuring some things out. You've seen the same games that I've watched. They are coming together. They look much better than what they did at, say, the first or second week in January, and they're going to look much better by the end of February than what they look currently right now. So in terms of when it matters most, yes, they lost in the regular season. Will they likely win the SWAC regular season title? No, they won't. But at the same time, there is still an opportunity for them to potentially win the SWAC tournament, which could help them get a seed in the NCAA tournament. Will things be hard to do, considering they'll have to probably play likely Texas Southern or Southern for the championship? Should they get there, it will be. But I like their chances going into the tournament if they're able to put it together.
Is Texas Southern that much better than every team, or are they just a little bit better, but they just play consistent?
I think it's a combination of they play consistent and they have some great quality players. And the third point that I would like to make, Coach Skeet, she's really good. She has those players playing really, really good team ball, and they're coming together. It almost feels like they're still coming together as well and still building that chemistry as a team. And that's what you want at this time of the season, right? You've been through non-conference play. You managed to see what the team is truly made of in the month of January. And come February, where we are now, when it gets to, you start looking at 1-2 games can make a difference if you lose. 1 or 2 games in the month of January, it could make a difference. But in February, these are the games that you have to have. And I think that Texas Southern is truly playing its best basketball. And as long as they continue to play their best basketball, they're going to be the team to beat. And they're going to remain the team to beat in the SWAC.
Is it crazy that we're already 11 conference games in? I mean, we're very close to tournament time, and they play 2 games a week in conference. So what is that? We're about 3.5 weeks away,
Yep.
4 weeks away, about a month away. So you're right. I mean, we're March Madness. They call it March Madness for a reason. All
Right.
right. On the men's side, that was a beatdown that they had
Yeah.
yesterday.
Yes.
No surprise, of course. I
No,
don't think
not
it's a
at all.
surprise from either one of us.
Right.
Uh, they're playing well, but there's something missing. I can't explain it. There's something missing right now from them. I don't know if it's they don't consistently, I guess, get easy shots inside, that they rely too much on the long ball. They're very guard heavy, but they're not big at their guard spots. Is it just me? I mean, what are you thinking?
So one thing that has always concerned me specifically with Jackson State is the fact that the guards that they do have, although talented, they are smaller in stature in comparison to some of the other guards in the SWAC. However, with Jackson State, I think it's more for me making sure that if they maintain and get leads, making sure that they maintain them, like not getting lax, making sure they're playing for both halves, because this is a Jackson State team. When they start strong, they start strong. You know, when the players are hitting buckets, making shots, the ball is moving constantly like it's supposed to, they are playing absolutely lights out. But when they struggle at times in that almost near that 10-minute mark, 11, 12-minute mark of the second half, where they may go in a drought, or sometimes it may be later into the second half where they aren't scoring, and the ball is not moving like it needs to. And so they give up some of those leads that they've built over a game. So I think as they continue to go down the stretch, that's going to be key to your point of what you were mentioning, making sure that they capitalize on those buckets inside the paint, because they have size. Shannon Grant doesn't get much better than a guy like him that you have in the paint. And of course, Romeo, like getting him the ball is going to always be equivalent and a big piece to them being able to win games. So I think making sure they're always able to be efficient around the rim, which is what you just mentioned, is going to be key. But again, too, Blake, there's some tough competition in the SWAC too. I mean, obviously you have Southern that's ahead of them at 10-1, not the sexiest team, but they're still winning games. Although they just had their first loss, and then you got a dangerous Bethune-Cookman team that's really taking some strides, who Jackson State beat at home in January. So one thing about this time of year, anybody can be beaten, and it's really not just February, but anybody can be beaten. But in the month of February, you're always going to have those teams that's like right on the cusp that are still trying to make a name for itself to potentially add some points to their resume to see if they can make a run in their respective conference tournament. And Jackson State, not only will they have to do that, but it's going to be other teams behind them trying to knock them off to get to those spots as well.
And I think with how much they shoot from three, though, it's really tough to win tournament games because you got to win every single day, and you got to hope your jump shot's on every single day. You know, you talk about the teams that are a little bit bigger, play down low, big guards, and I think Texas Southern in past years they've really had that, and that's kind of why they've been playing in the NCAA tournament. Do you think that there's one team in the conference that is built for the conference tournament? Say, having those big guys down low. I mean, I know you really like Alabama State.
Well, I think more so when you talk about bigs, I would say probably, like you said, Texas Southern. Obviously, Southern is strong there as well. But Jackson State has the pieces. It's just a matter of capitalizing on those opportunities. Because again,
do you think they just don't get them the ball that much, that's just not really how they run their offense? Because the bigs are big,
right? Well, I think it's more so depending on, obviously, game plans change depending on what teams you're playing. So if you're Jackson State, you're playing against a team that doesn't really have much of a threat as a rim protector on the opposing team, then I'm absolutely trying to get the ball to Romeo or Shannon in the post so that they can eat around the glass. But if you have teams that have a bigger post presence and rim protection, then you're going to rely on those mid-range jump shots or transition play to potentially get most of your points. But I think that with Jackson State, again, as they continue to build and kind of navigate and maneuver through this month of February, I could easily see them being able to continue to feed Shannon and Romeo in the post. And I think that's going to take them a very long way if they want to be able to potentially play in the NCAA tournament.
Any big plans this weekend?
For me, I will be watching a lot of basketball. Whether it's HBCU, NAIA, SEC, it is truly, you know what, Super Bowl is over. They say NFL season is over, which football is never over, clearly. But it is really, if you have not been paying attention to basketball season, this is the time to start paying attention to basketball season.
All right, that's Mr. Jackson, Blake Levine, and that's the Magnolia Shine podcast, the Jackson State Report.